We'll call to order the meeting of the Township Committee of Hamilton, Monday, October 1st, 2018. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by publication in the Press of Atlantic City on January the 5th, 2018, and the Atlantic County Record on January the 10th, 2018. Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mr. Kurtz?
Here.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mr. Silva?
Here.
And Mayor Schenker.
Here. We have a moment of silence for private reflection. Thank you. We have presentations. We have a proclamation that we do yearly for Knockout Opiate Abuse Day. It's on October 6, 2018. There's no one here, so I'm just going to real quick read the proclamation. Whereas New Jersey is in the midst of a life-threatening opioid abuse epidemic, and whereas the Partnership for a Drug-Free New Jersey is designated October 6, 2018 as Knockout Opiate Abuse Day, an initiative with a dual purpose: to educate the families of addicted qualities of opiate pain medicines and their link to heroin abuse rates in New Jersey, and communicate to physicians information on safer prescribing messages found in the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention and guidelines for prescribing opiates, which include considering other therapies, setting realistic treatment goals with the patients, and discussing with patients the pros and cons of opioids. And whereas the State Senate and the General Assembly jointly resolved that October 6th shall be permanently designated as Knockout Opioid Abuse Day in New Jersey in order to raise awareness about the dangers of and the link between opioid abuse and heroin addiction, and to educate the healthcare providers and community leaders, state lawmakers, and members of the public about opioid abuse and opioid abuse epidemic and its effects throughout the state of New Jersey and across the country. Whereas Join Together Atlantic County supports initiatives designed to raise awareness about opioid abuse in New Jersey, takes steps to prevent addiction. We have early public comment on agenda items, excluding items listed in the public hearings. Mike? Anybody?
Oh, shoot. Nobody signed up.
No one? Okay, we have discussions. Formal actions may be taken. A, public hearing of the 5-year tax exemption abatement, Dusin and Branca Tanzik, is that right? I tried. Block 730, Lot 12, 207, Lenape Avenue. So this is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Close the public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We have, the folks are here tonight. Is that you? Okay, so we can move on this if we would like?
Yep.
Let's present them to the microphone, please.
Okay.
My name is Dusan Tanasic.
You gotta talk louder.
My name is Dusan Tanasic, and I live at 207 Lenape Avenue. My wife.
I'm Branka Tanasic.
Could you both raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that you're about to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Can one of you explain what it is that you're trying to do?
We bought a house. It was 118 years old. It was in very poor shape. We had to redo everything. It took us a year to do it. This is our primary residency.
And what's the location of the house?
207 Lenape.
And
We
it's
have
in-
pictures how it was before and how it's looking now.
Okay, you can present them to the mayor.
we had to take a siding, the roofing, the
Good, I
windows,
saw one. Thank you.
everything.
Thank you.
It was a very poor shape. And all neighbors are very happy with us.
You see?
It really looks,
Very nice, looks very good.
Yeah, very nice.
For the record,
Congratulations.
it is in the historic district.
yes, it
Yes.
is. And we got approval for every step, and we got to do.
And
They
have you-
approved the colors, they approved the shingles, they approved everything.
And are you done? Are you complete?
Yes, we moved in February 24th.
And do you believe that the improvements that you gave to the property will enhance the value of the property?
And the neighborhood too.
Now, I'll get to that. First of all,
Yes,
More importantly,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and you've heard from neighbors, and they think it's enhancing the value of the neighborhood. All right, is there anything else you'd like to tell the committee?
The historic
Committee.
committee tell us they're gonna hold the taxes, whatever it is, after they are satisfied how we fix the house.
Okay, you can take judicial notice of that fact.
okay, thank you.
Do any members of the committee have any questions of the witnesses?
Well, the picture, the telephone pole is in one picture, is not in the other, but I assume that's just the location of the camera.
Telephone poles are there.
Well,
We
first,
had not, we could not change anything on the house, but we had to put the same shingle like it was, it's not the same shingle, but it has to look like,
Yeah, that's what they did.
yes,
like it was before. So they approved the colors, they approved everything. We were their best friends for a whole year.
very good. Well, congratulations on your new home.
Thank you.
And thank you for making our town look a little better.
Yep,
Yes,
looks
indeed,
great.
thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it does.
Okay, that's all we need from you, then I guess we'll move forward.
I'll make a motion to
Resolution.
approve the resolution.
And I'll
I'll
second it.
second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by, in the roll call. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes,
All yes and carried.
Congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations.
We'll move on to B, resolution approving request for a 5-year tax exemption abatement in historic district for renovation of a home and construction of a garage, block 730, lot 12.
That's what we just did.
That's the same property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same property?
same.
Okay, so we can just move this?
You can?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
C, resolution to designate the Atlantic City Racetrack property, block 1135.01, and lot 10.01, in a non-condemnation redevelopment area in accordance with the New Jersey SA 40A 12A 5. So in layman's terms, it's an area of redevelopment. Okay, anybody have any questions?
Public here.
Bill, you want to speak on this real quick so everybody understands what I just read?
And also, Mr. Maley's partner, Emily Givens, is here in case there's any
Hello.
questions that are above my head. But basically, in June 18th, committee authorized the investigation of the racetrack property to see if it qualified as a non-condemnation redevelopment area. After doing the study, the planning board had a public hearing on September 20th, where there was a finding that it did meet at least 2 of the criteria. And at the conclusion of that hearing, the board unanimously recommended that it be designated a non-condemnation redevelopment area. I believe you have a copy of the report that was submitted along with the planning board's resolution. It's fairly straightforward.
Okay, good.
Question?
Yes.
Why is it a non-condemnation redevelopment area instead of just a redevelopment area?
Non-condemnation redevelopment area, basically, under the law, we have to make that call actually, committee has to make that call at the time they authorized the investigation. By doing non-condemnation, that just signifies that we're going to work cooperatively with the property owner to come up with a plan for redeveloping the site. If it were if they didn't agree with the designation as a condemnation redevelopment area, they could have opposed, and there could have been objections to moving forward with it. It takes that, I guess, weapon, for lack of a better term, and sets that aside, similar to with a rehabilitation area where condemnation of property is not permitted there. If over time the committee would choose to change the designation to a condemnation redevelopment area, you would have to start the process all over again and go through the whole redevelopment designation at that time.
Well, we have areas designated as rehabilitation areas.
Correct.
But this is the first one I recall seeing that said non-condemnation.
Well, this is redevelopment. It's different from rehabilitation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, the abilities of the township are a little bit more expanded with redevelopment as opposed to rehabilitation designation.
Thank you.
Very good.
Does this give free rein to, put whatever they want there?
No,
No?
no, because whatever goes there, first thing, this body would have to approve a redevelopment plan, which is an ordinance that you would adopt, says that these are the uses we're going to allow there.
Okay.
I would still have to go through planning board approval, and also there should be a redevelopment agreement between the township and the redeveloper, spelling out, this is what the plan says, this is what we're going to do, and this is the time frame, etc. So it doesn't give free rein, but it does allow the municipality and the property owner to work cooperatively to come up with a use that would work on the property.
And the planning board did see the need for some possible public hearings at some different locations on this, because there was some confusion between rehabilitation and redevelopment in some of the public's eye, and we wanted to get that straightened out by having some of these areas where we could discuss it and give the public an opportunity to come and listen to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bill, since they haven't done a thing there, other than have the auctions and a circus and some other stuff, well, that's actually on the mall's property, they had it. Will you communicate this to them if this goes through, to the
Yes.
owners?
Yes, they've been aware of it. In fact, we made sure that they were aware when we first came up with the process that they were in favor of moving forward with it, so that we have been in communication through Mr. Nemat's office to let them know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. I think this is a great step towards getting this property back in shape again. It's been dilapidated for a long time, and it's right in the center of our shopping area, which is one of the nicest shopper areas. Well, it is, at least in this county, and probably two others. So anything we can do to help promote that, and this does give us a tool to sit down and kind of work as a partner almost with the developer to help get this thing done. It's a lot of acreage out there, and it's a big lift for any developer to come in and develop that. So anything that we can do to help promote that, taxable land is always much better than what we have out there now. So it's a good step forward.
Is there any move to subdivide the land and, for instance, you could have different functions?
Not at this time.
Not at this time?
Again, until they come up with a redevelopment plan as far as how they want to use the area, and then once that's approved, subsequent to that, any sort of subdivision would presumably take place.
You mentioned, Art, non-taxable land is better than non-taxable, what we have now. But what we have now is taxed, is it not?
It is.
It's just that it's taxed at a low rate because of it's not an income earner.
I'm aware. Thanks for correcting me, though. I appreciate it.
Well, just didn't want the public to think, not to collect anything on it.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you, Phil. We'll go to public hearings. We have no introduction of ordinances. We're going to go to awards, bids, contracts, and change orders. A, resolution authorizing the third-year bid award of bid 2016-09 to provide heating, ventilation, and air conditioning service and maintenance to the Township of Hamilton. Award Marley Contractors LLC, not to exceed $60,000 for the period of January 1st, 2019 through December 31st of 2019.
I'll move that resolution.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and second. Rita, we roll call, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
B, resolution authorizing option year 2 of the extension of the award of bid number 2017-11 as needed plumbing services to Falaska Mechanical Incorporated for the period of January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, not to exceed $25,000.
I'll move that resolution.
Second.
A motion and a second. Rita, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
C, resolution authorizing the extension of bid 2017-12 pump maintenance and testing to fire apparatus repair for term January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, not to exceed $30,000.
I'll move that resolution.
Second.
A motion and a second. Rita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
D, resolution authorizing option year 2 of the extension of award bid 2017-14 as needed carpentry services to Warner's Construction Incorporated for the period of January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, not to exceed $35,000.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Rita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
E, resolution to authorize the award of contract to Bowman and Company LLP to provide professional services for the administration of the Section 125 cafeteria plan for the 2019 plan year, not to exceed $2,000.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. F, resolution amending the resolution 2018-0201, retaining the legal services of M.J. Malley, Jr. Esquire of Malley Givens P.C. as special counsel, redevelopment attorney to include increase of the amount of $20,000 to a total contract amount of $35,000.
I'll move that resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those, Rita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. G, resolution authorizing the purchase of 3 Monroe Torsion Trip Edge River reversible snow plows from Dejana Truck and Utility Equipment through ESC New Jersey Co-op number 65 MCESCCPS. Amount of purchase $43,152.30.
I'll move that resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
H, resolution authorizing acceptance of the proposal from Wayne A. Neville, AIA, for the design and construction administration of the ADA New Jersey barrier-free entrance improvements at the Alfred Lundy Center not to exceed $1,500.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
I did have a question, Mr. Mayor. Was it regarding the Resolution G? I just wondered what the triple edge reversible means for the snowplow. Is that a new function, or?
The trip edge kicks out.
Oh. Is that new for our trucks? No, I mean, is that edge reversible feature something new, or is that on the other trucks too?
Actually, it's a little bit different. The plow itself doesn't trip, just the blade.
Okay, thank you.
7, consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 7A through G.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, the ayes have it. Number 8, personnel. A, authorization to advertise in-house for 2 vacant full-time dispatcher positions.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. B, resolution appointing Jenny Ayers as Municipal Utilities Authority regular member to fill unexpired term of Richard DeFeo, term ending 2/1/2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Number 9, approvals.
I have a question here.
Okay?
She is vacating a alternate spot. Is there another position available then?
Yes, we could probably fill that at a later date.
Okay.
9, approvals. A, minutes of September 17, 2018, regular meeting.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. B, payroll and bills. Bill list total, $904,392.53.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Rita, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Number 10, reports. Mr. Administrator.
Nothing to add.
Mr. Solicitor.
I am pleased to announce that we had a very successful hearing to settle the Tavistock litigation. There was no one that showed up in opposition to it. 2 folks showed up from the association in favor of it. Counsel was there for myself, for the township, counsel for the bonding company was there, and counsel for the association was there. And Judge Savio approved the settlement, signed the order. That order has been recorded in the court system. I've retained services of Bob Bishop from the title company to assist me in recording it with the county clerk in its most effective way. So we should have $650,000 to do that project in the next 30 days, or quicker. I'm working on, or quicker.
Long
Very
time
good.
coming, but good news.
Quite a few years, huh, Bob? Congratulations.
How many years has that been, Bob? Is it close to 10?
Almost 5.
5.
Right now.
And the irony of it is that we agreed on the amount 2 years ago. The mechanism to effectuate the settlement was really the cog in the wheel. But the way that we did it in a way that will bind all future purchasers of units there, so that we're not faced with any lawsuits. In addition to that, it provides for indemnification with respect to the basins, because the basins were not part of the remedial repair, but the association has to purchase a insurance policy insuring the township, its officers and employees in the event that some kid falls through the ice or somebody gets hurt there. So I think I've done my best to protect this community in every way I could think of.
Did a good
Excellent.
job.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bob.
appreciate it.
The question, once we get the $650,000, is it automatic that they start, doing the paving?
Well, through the good efforts of Mr. Philippone and his company, without the promise of being paid, he has already embarked upon doing the contract documents, and he is poised to put this out as soon as we can fund the pool of money. You have already authorized an ordinance to create an appropriation package so that that money can be set where it has to be and be used for that purpose. So, thanks to our engineers' efforts, I think we're going to get that done quickly.
Great.
Let's hope the weather holds out, right?
Yeah, those people would be very happy in Tavistock if we were able to get that done this year.
Yeah, it does happen.
That's it.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Engineer, the pressure's on you now.
Yep, Mayor and committee, I have a few items to report. On Thursday, with the help of Phil Sartorio, we submitted an application for the NJDOT Municipal Aid Grant, and this is New York Avenue for a distance of 0.6 miles from Route 40, past where the bridge is, past the village of Harding's Run, past the Conifer Project, to just short of where the road starts to curve. That was the limit line of another phase of New York Avenue. So it's about 0.6 miles, and the value of that application is $351,000. So that was filed on Thursday, about a week and a half ahead of schedule.
Will you be moving, what happened to moving the stop line back? Are you gonna wait till you do this, or are you
Still
gonna?
waiting. Kevin has gotten permission from NJDOT. I don't know if Brett is going to be doing the physical striping of that, but he's gotten a verbal okay. I know he was waiting for something more formal. I think Kevin's waiting for a letter, but Kevin's on vacation this week, but I'll talk to him as soon as he gets back.
I think you may have answered this question before, but just to check, that road is rather narrow, and it drops off on either end. It drops off right into the gully. Will there be any widening of that at all?
I wish we could. It's 28 feet wide,
Yeah.
and there's wetlands just on each edge of the road. I wish we could widen it, but I don't think we could obtain permits to do that.
The community that is being built there, is that open yet, or
They're not yet.
not yet?
There was a meeting today. They're seeking a temporary certificate of occupancy. So I think in the next couple of weeks is possible.
Do they still have to address the basin issue?
Yes, that's the biggest issue right now.
Yeah, that's what's holding it up. That's,
Noticed
and
they
that's
fenced
good.
everything around and put all the wire behind it too,
Yes,
which was a good thing.
it's good. It's good. Kevin Dixon's been the engineer on that project, but I've been asked to take a look at it this week, and I started to while he's on vacation. Last Thursday, we had a pre-construction meeting for the road program, and Ken Lamberg was the low bid, and we were very impressed with him. I think he'll do a very nice job. What we're going to do is we'll walk the roads this week, Brett, myself, and Ken, and he's hoping to start next Monday on the road program. He's looking forward to completing them by Thanksgiving, so he's
That's great.
committed to getting the jobs done.
The weather holds out.
That's great.
Construction projects, Buffalo Pike Associates, everybody sees their way to the Black Horse Pike. It'll just be stabilized base. It will not open. It'll open when the project opens up. And again, they're trying to get that project completed for the holidays.
Right.
So they're trying to keep to a pretty strict schedule. Outback Steakhouse started a couple weeks ago. That's moving along nicely. They're still doing a lot of work on the ground right now. And Artist Walk, they seem to have been. Artist Walk has contracted some of the individual lots with Ryan Homes, and Ryan Homes must have a pretty good price point because they seem to be turning over 1 to 2 houses a week out there. So there's 4 more sections of Artist Walk. They've asked me to prepare bonding estimates for those last 4 phases. So we're starting to see a lot of residential growth out in that area. The municipal generator, we're still going to wait and continue to take a look at that. Johnny Electric has applied a sealant to that. It's a sealant that Brett and I spent a lot of time scrutinizing it. It's a 3-step process. It's been applied. Cummins Diesel had represented that it's well over 40 years that fuel tank would survive without incident, without a coating, and after a lot of research and communication with Cummins and Johnny Electric, we elected to go to a 3-step sealant that so far it looks pretty good. We have a little bit of time left on the bond, so I kind of want to give it just a little bit more time before I sign off on it. We had 1 CO inspection at Glen Air this past week. 3 new street opening permits were processed. The other thing, I just wanted to echo what John Kurtz had said about the rehabilitation and the redevelopment. I hear at the meetings that I attend, planning board, and hear how important it is to get the word out to everybody, like John just mentioned a few minutes ago. And there's been a couple of mentions, maybe you can go on our website. I think a public hearing inviting the community is a great idea, but I'm also thinking maybe with Emily Gibbons and Jim Malley, they've done many towns. Maybe they can give us some good ideas and good advice. I don't know, social media, I'm not sure, but I'd like to draw from their experience how we can get the word out to the community. It's such a good tool, but if the public doesn't know about it and developers looking at our town, it's going to fall short of our goals.
I think it would be a combination of having a public forum for your residents to come and listen and ask questions, and also having some information available on the website. Just so that it's out there and people will.
Yeah. Well, we'll be talking to you about that. Okay. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Steve. Does anybody else have any questions? All right, we'll move on to Township Committee members. Judy?
Today, in reference to this National Knockout Opioid Abuse Day, the Hanson family, Ole Hanson, and the Hanson Foundation had a fundraiser at Hidden Creek, and it was very well attended. It was a great day for it, and they're constantly raising money to help people with opioid addictions or heroin addictions, and they have worked tirelessly to develop the procedures and the let's say the steps that a person has to take, and they watch them every step of the way, because it's just one pill away from death. They were saying on the TV today, this one fellow that made a report said his son took 1 pill and it killed him because it was laced with fentanyl. So, it's pretty bad. And I admire my niece, Jennifer Hansen, and my family, Edwin and Roger, for the endless pursuit in bringing, bringing back hundreds of people from that opioid condition. So many kudos, and it takes more than a village to make this happen. So when you can, donate to this epidemic. And that's it.
Thank you. John?
I'd just like to mention we're, as you can see on the lots out there on the properties on 7th Street off of 50, they finally are down, and they just have one that has to be graded over. and that'll be finished. Also, they're working on the property out on Knightsbridge Road, which we're happy to see something happening there that sat for so long. And a bank has it, and we're working with them to make sure that that's done right. Also, this past weekend ago, we had the Wine Fest held by the Merchants Association out at Lake Lenape. It was a success on Saturday, and Sunday it got washed out, but they had a very good turnout on Saturday, and still had a few people come out to take advantage of pre-sold tickets, and we had a pretty decent crowd there even in the rain on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it worked out well. Also, I'd just like to mention that the merchants are having the Fall Festival, as they do every year, on Saturday, October 20th in the Memorial Park, right there on the corner of 50 and Main Street. And it's always a great event. There's pumpkin painting for the kids, a lot of things to do, a hay toss. So it's the same type things going on. It always brings a good crowd. There'll be a train ride there again for the kids, which is always popular. So I encourage everybody to come out and bring the family for hopefully a nice day. That's it, Art.
Thank you, John. Roger?
Yeah, this past Thursday, I was over to the Recovery Centers of America, which is, they just put their new addition on. Place is first class. Had over 250 people there that day, and they had an open house, and they had the owner of the company there, and they talked about all the things that they're doing. One thing that always impressed me about that place, 5 or 6 times that I've been there, is it's not like a hospital. It's like a resort center, and the people who go there get to experience a lot of different things. I mean, they got a first-class chef there. They have they have exercise rooms. They have a lot of different stuff that appeals to these people. I think having them in our community, and they've been here for a while, to provide a valuable service like that, whereas before there was really nothing for the people who wanted to get into rehab in our area, in this community, it says a lot. Following right up on that, Saturday out at the mall, they had the Senior Expo. There were a lot of great vendors out there. They had a number of people who visited the expo, and I think those type of events usually draw, and I think it was very good. The other thing I want to tell you about, told the chief about this, on the October the 3rd, they're having coffee with a cop at Dunkin'. Is it Dunkin' Donuts or just Dunkin', Chief?
Just Dunkin'.
Dunkin'. Okay, but that's from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. Also, I just saw it in my bin today, Laundry and Suites at the Festival Mall is having a grand opening next week. It's a very nice facility. I've been in there. Turns out I knew these people from Pleasantville, and they're running a very first-class operation with all high-end equipment, washing machines and dryers. The other thing I was sad to find in my bin was Lou Green, Veterans Advocate for 17 years. He said, "This letter is noticed that effective November 1, I will discontinue my Veterans Assistance and Information Program. I started at the Hamilton Mall in Mays Landing approximately 17 plus years ago. My purpose was to collect and distribute to veterans and family members VA, federal, New Jersey state and county benefits they all deserve for their services." Lou has been a tireless worker for this, and I'm going to miss him out there. I would like somehow if we could just, on committee, get him in here and present him with some sort of a proclamation, or that we all supported him over these years, and that we find that his service was invaluable. So that's pretty much it. Thanks, Mayor.
Very good. Rodney?
Yeah, I'd certainly like to second the comments that Roger made. In fact, we had talked about possibly having a proclamation for Lou, and I would suggest as a minimum that we do that. As Roger mentioned, 17 years of dedicated service. He's helped literally, I'm sure it must be thousands of veterans over the years.
Definitely.
And it's been a tremendous service. It's hard to find someone who's contributed to that extent and over that period of time. I too attended the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee exposition on Saturday, and I certainly second what Roger said. I think there must have been in the vicinity of 20, or maybe 20 plus
At least.
vendors.
Yeah.
And they were I had interesting conversations with every single one of them. I'm sure anyone who attended found it very helpful, and I want to commend the Senior Advisory Committee for putting it together and doing the job they did. It took a lot of work. The Veterans Advisory Board, I attended their most recent meeting, and amongst the things that were discussed, of course, the upcoming Veterans Day was discussed, and some proposed possible changes that will be coming before the committee for the board. One continuing problem has been attendance, and it's a 7-member board, and in order to have a quorum, you need to have at least 4 members there. And for various reasons, members have sometimes not been there. So we discussed a number of possibilities, one including making it 9 instead of 7, another including having 2 alternates. But anyway, we'll bring that before the board.
Yeah.
We also discussed the honor and remember plackets in the hall opposite the tax collector's office. Right now, the way they're structured, they're plaques, and there's a plaque for every year. And on some plaques, there are only 3 names, and on others, there are 9 names, and it's not a very efficient way of putting the names down there. So we proposed having a larger plaque, which will fit up to 60 names, and filling that up. That means taking the information off the old ones and put it on the new ones. It'll be some small charge involved, but I think logistically and aesthetically it'll look much nicer if we do it that way. So you'll hear about that also. And just want to remind people that tomorrow is the bond referendum, the school board bond referendum. So
6.
Don't forget that. What is it, 6 o'clock?
6 to 8.
To 8, and all the polling places will be open, so it's just a reminder. That's all I have. Thank you. Oh, well, one more thing. In our packet tonight, we had the Historic Preservation Ordinance. It says revised 2018. It has to do with the issue of solar panels in the historic district. This is, there are district members or residents and businesses who would like to install solar panels on their roofs. And the solar panels are not, at least not deemed to be consistent with the historic area. So the recommendation or requirement is to put them on the part of the roof that can't be seen, or to install them on the ground. My concern with this is that apparently there are people that weren't aware that they had these kind of restrictions, and I think that we, and I think I mentioned this before, as a community ought to assure that when people buy property in the historic area, that they are aware that there are some requirements associated with that. One of the things we can do is just send a letter to property owners in that area, but we can also require, and that might require a legal opinion on it, but to have our realtors assure that any people considering buying property in those areas are informed of the historic district requirements. You can always say, let the buyer beware, but I think we have a responsibility to make sure that they get that information. So I would like to propose that either we send a letter out to people in the historic district, or that we look into the possibility of having our realtors assuring us that they have provided that information to prospective buyers.
And Rodney, on that note, I had the opportunity to attend a meeting at a solar panel office on Main Street, and they were discussing some new techniques that are coming online, which are solar shingles.
Right.
And they're not fully there yet, but it's another alternative, particularly in new construction in the future.
Yeah.
Where they'll go with solar shingles from the get-go. And same thing, I think it's something people have to be educated on and know about to make it happen. But
Actually, I believe those solar shingles are out there now, but
they are.
the
but
problem
they're
very
is
expensive.
they're
very
costly.
We're not
So-
the only historic district in New Jersey, and maybe they can find out how the other historic districts approach this issue. I'm sure it comes up, with all, 567 municipalities. There has to be somebody who is dealing with that too, and maybe they could give some solutions.
Well, we're dealing with it also, and my only suggestion is that we make sure that people that have property there, or particularly people that are buying property, aren't surprised by the requirements there. I think our real estate agents should be assuring that they know about it, but we can help that by asking that they provide that information. I mean, I think that's reasonable.
One additional thing is that not all roofs where you are suitable for putting solar because they don't accumulate the sun.
yeah, direction.
Direction of the
Yeah,
roofs.
that's true too. But once again, people should know about it, and that's my concern. If you move into the district and you're aware of what the requirements are going to be, fine. But in many cases, they aren't aware of it, and I think we have an obligation to make sure they are. I would suggest either sending out a letter to people in the historic district, and requiring, and again, I would have to ask the council whether we can do that, but having the realtors assure that people are made aware of the requirements in the historic district.
You can ask, you can put the local real estate agencies on notice, and that would be helpful, it would be a reminder. But the public is deemed to be on notice of whatever happens in this room. So you satisfy the requirements of due process when you have an agenda, you have public hearings and so forth. But that doesn't mean all people know it. You and I both know that, Rodney.
Well, that's right. And
So the
this-
answer is yes, you can put the realtors on notice that you would like them to educate buyers as to the requirements of the district.
Well, I would like to propose that we do that. Now, maybe that's an agenda item for the next meeting. We have agreement? All right, I'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
You don't need to. Mike can administratively do that.
Okay?
Unless one of you opposes it, objects to it.
No, I don't object to it at all. We talked about it previously.
I mean, it's an administrative function where the administrator is placing certain business entities on notice of an existing law. That's all it is.
And what if they don't abide by that?
Unless you're going to put something in the law to make them do it, which I'm not so sure you can sitting here right now, it has no teeth. But I represent a number of agencies, and I represent title companies, and I tell them, you do as much as you can possibly do to protect yourself. And by protecting yourself, you're protecting a buyer.
Well, I'd just like to ensure that the buyers do know about it. So I suppose we can check that out
Ken?
in the future. But for now, if the notice is the proposed way to go, I'm in favor of it, and I think it sounded like everyone else was. Okay.
The downside of it, Rodney, is that with respect to the local real estate agencies, that's easy. But sometimes the agencies are from out of the area, and they represent the buyers. I would guess that more likely than not, the local agencies represent more sellers than buyers because they're here and they know the people. So you're selectively grabbing just the local folks who are involved in the sale of real estate. And that's not a bad thing. Every little bit helps.
Those people that came before us here tonight seemed to know what they had to do in that home, even with the paint, the shingles, etc. So someone must have informed them.
The Historic Preservation Committee, I would guess.
Yeah, they'd have to be informed about those kind of changes, yeah.
There's no harm in doing with that what you're suggesting.
All right, and just to go over it, the letters to the resident in the area and the notice to the realtor.
That's up to you, Michael.
Or a good newspaper article.
That could help too. All right, then.
Good?
Yeah, they could
Very good.
notify it, but not everyone gets the.
I just want to mention that, yeah, the seniors event that they had at the mall was a huge success. I want to congratulate Diane Fox and all the members of the committee that they did a great job. It seems to be getting bigger and bigger every year, a little more successful every year. So congratulations to all of them for their efforts. The Wine Fest, yeah, it was great. I was there Saturday and Sunday, but Sunday we got a little damp. I was amazed that there was a lot of people there that just pulled out the umbrellas and it didn't bother them at all. They just kept on going at it, and it was still a good time for a lot of people. So we appreciate the Merchants Association for bringing that to the township and keeping it alive every year. And unfortunately, Sunday didn't work out as well as Saturday, but you know, there's always next year. So thanks you to all of the members of the Merchants for keeping that going. The only other thing I'd like to touch on is the opioid abuse. I know, Chief, I hate to put you on the spot, but you had given us some numbers, I think, last year of how it is growing in proportion. Do you have any idea what the growth rate is, or where we are from one year to the next? I think it's important for people to know this kind of stuff, because I still think people think it's not going to affect their home.
I don't have the report with me this evening.
That's fine.
But I get an update every month, and it's increased about 20 cases per year over the last 3 years. And last year we were around 55 cases, I want to say, where we've had overdoses, around 5 to 6 fatalities each year. And I know this year we're on pace to at least keep up with that. So by the end of the year, I'll have the totals on that.
Okay.
But it is absolutely still a significant problem,
Yes.
and something that's getting worse. It's not getting better.
Yes, thank you. And it seems there was a program on, I don't know whether, I believe it was 60 Minutes on Sunday night, that interviewed some doctors that are now in prison for the amount of opioids that they prescribed to people, where there was an excess of 60 a day being prescribed to a person. And whether they're selling it or taking it themselves, it's leading them down the wrong path, and you know, that's part of the problem. But I think this brings a light to something, that this is the worst drug epidemic in the history of the United States, and we all know about the other ones years ago. This is out of control, and something's got to be done about it. And I think that we're going to start by holding the doctors accountable and also educating people. You know, you would think that you would understand that this stuff is bad, and but some people just don't get it, and it's unfortunate. And hopefully this education, we can educate them and get them to understand how quickly you become addicted to this stuff will help. So Thank you, Chief.
I was going to say, the other thing is they're moving at getting the pharmaceuticals, the companies, put in jail.
Yeah.
For their role in producing these things.
That hasn't happened yet, though.
No, it hasn't.
Well-
And we're,
Yeah.
Not talking about putting them in jail. There is a number of lawsuits that have been filed by a lawyer in New York City by the name of Paul Hanley. I'm co-counsel with him on a case for Cape May County. They're suing the pharmaceutical industries for damages, money. And there was one filed in a city in Pennsylvania. Cape May County is going to file one, and they're going to be all over the place. I think Patterson's involved, Newark, and these are going to be class action, multi-billion-dollar cases. And some of them are in suit, and there's a whole lot of them are going to follow. So pharma and some of the big companies are going to be in this litigation for a long time, and they're to take that money and recompensate the public entities who paid for the treatment and the rehabilitation of addicts. So that is going to go across the nation. I'm peripherally involved in it. I stay involved in it. And I just get a feeling that it's going to end up in some courtroom somewhere. When the first case gets tried, a lot's going to happen after that. And the idea is to recompensate government, towns, counties, who put up all the money to help rehabilitate people, to be paid back that money and use it to rehabilitate other people.
Of course, in the long run, the public pays for that too, because that's reflected in junk prices. What's not happening and what should happen is some people ought to go to jail. Now, if that happens, I think that would help put an end to this. I just want to mention that there were 72,000 deaths last year from opioids, and that's more than was killed over the 10-year period of the Vietnam War.
It is.
I mean, it is horrible.
And that's what it takes. Get the conversation started and people start talking about it and start realizing that there is a problem. I mean, we've had these conversations here before, and unfortunately, we're still having the same conversation. I think, if we see these numbers level off, and then hopefully they'll start to head downward.
There's two things, and I don't think I'm talking out of school yet right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. I can tell you that the state of New Jersey is going to aggressively be going after doctors. They have been, and they will continue to do so.
Yeah.
And our area, Atlantic County in particular, unfortunately, was just designated as a high-intensity drug trafficking area as it relates to the heroin issue. So there's two areas that are going to be attacked aggressively in the next few years.
Okay.
How about the drugs that come from China, with the fentanyl in it? How are we dealing with that?
That's a DEA question, but that absolutely is occurring. And it was coming from Mexico. They shut down one of those labs, but it goes back and forth between China and Mexico.
Yeah, they don't feed the West Coast anymore. There was a program on the TV a week ago about drugs and its movement. Now, all the stuff coming up from Mexico, they no longer send it to the West Coast. They send it to the East Coast. And that's a heavy concentration here because they're saturated on the West Coast already. It's amazing.
I understand the post office is looking into ways to try to do something about that also. I don't know whether they'll come up with ways of sniffing mail or what, but a lot of it is delivered via the mail.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Chief, thank you very much. I appreciate you. I hate to put you on the spot like that, but I did it anyway. That's all I have. We move on to public comment. Anybody in the public like to speak? Yes.
A little short. So last time I was here, all of you gave approval for a Scout project, Eagle Scout project for the Pell Building. So I want to say again, thank you for your approval and your support. But I wanted to give you the update that at this point in time, that is at a standstill. So we hit some constraints, primarily time, and hopefully we can look at it again for another year. But want to keep you updated since you were so kind to give that approval and your support for it. So, thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment on the solar energy in the historic district. To my knowledge, solar voltaic energy is considered a inherently beneficial use, which like schools, hospitals, and churches. And what that does is it allows those uses to be in nearly all zones. Now, I don't know if that would apply to a historic district. It's a legal question, but that is one avenue that people in the historic district could possibly use to get variances to have solar energy in that district if it would apply to his historic district. the zoning board hears applications for solar many times, mainly because of front yard and side yard setbacks and things like that. So solar could be applied for as a inherently beneficial use, perhaps, in a historic district. That may be another avenue for people to apply for that use. Thanks.
Is that something the planning board would have cognizance over?
Zoning board.
Zoning board.
The zoning.
Maybe that's something that should ask them to look at. As the Historic Society, I wonder, aware of that and had some discussions about it? Perhaps not.
I don't know.
What do you think, that's a question worth referring to the zoning board? Committee members?
The question is
it's
whether
really
it's
up to the
permitted use
historical.
currently.
Pardon me?
The first question is it a permitted use currently? And if it's not, Bruce is probably right. It probably would fall under the inherently beneficial use, and that satisfies the positive criteria, which is the purposes of zoning. But to get a variance, if it were not permitted, they would also have to satisfy the negative criteria, which does it go contrary to the intent and language of the zoning ordinance and the master plan. And that's something I'm not intimately familiar with, but that would be the analysis that the zoning board of adjustment would go through if they were asked to give a use variance for that property.
Well, I would think that this is an issue that's going to come up enough with the increased popularity of solar energy, particularly with the reduction in cost that it brings about, that it's something that we should look at, the zoning board should look at. At least that would be my recommendation.
Somebody on the planning board should tell us whether it's their opinion that it's a permitted use or not.
I agree. And also, every different area, when we redid our ordinances under the Historic Preservation Commission, we modeled them after, we took several different flavors from different groups around our area. Cape May was even one. This probably the strongest historic preservation ordinance is in Cape May, and they dealt with it by just absolutely no solar. There is no solar allowed in the historic district. Now I hear rumblings of talking about solar that where they have ground-mounted applications that are would be permitted, but nothing on the roofs. And it really has a lot to do with the area and how they design their ordinances and the permitted use aspect. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the first step is to find out from the planning board whether that's a permitted use.
I would start by asking Phil. And then go to the planning board.
There you
go. Okay, Phil?
Sorry, Phil.
That's all right. It's, short answer is the historic, or the solar panels themselves are not a use. They're essentially a piece of equipment similar to having an exterior HVAC unit. So, as Bruce said, yes, the zoning board hears cases primarily for setback of the structure that's supporting it. That's where the zoning board has been involved. With the historic district ordinance, it's different than majority of the residential areas in the township. Is there are design guidelines and controls written into the standards that have to be met, and that's where I think is what the Historic Commission is looking for, something as part of their design guidelines to say, these are situations where you could do it, these are situations where they would not be allowed or permitted. And regardless of what guidelines are written, there is an appeal process in that ordinance. I think if the commission hears it as a single applicant, like a single family residence, and they would not approve it, then the person would have the right to appeal that decision to the planning board. Mm-hmm. And then depending on the planning board action, it could be appealed to the zoning officer. Yeah. And depending on the zoning officer's action, it would then go to the zoning board of adjustment. So there's ample opportunity for a decision to be rendered on that.
Well, I guess my question is from the township or the zoning board's perspective, is there enough benefit associated with that beneficial use that its application to the historic area could be considered.
Well, and as Bob said, one of the criteria is, what's the impact of granting this variance? In the historic district, it's what's the impact of this on the district? So that's one of the things that would have to be analyzed as part of any variance application. And that's where the commission is looking for clear standards and to adopt clear standards saying in these situations it could be allowed, but in these situations it would not be allowed.
Do we have those questions?
Not at this point in time. That's why they're requesting the ordinance amendment to include some form of standards.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else in the public? Come on up.
Jenny Ayers, 4812 Green Ash Lane. I think from this discussion that I just heard, all of this should be kicked back to the HPC. There are a lot of examples that a historic district coming together with solar, there are different options as we talked about earlier, but I think Rodney, with all due respect, I think it should start with HPC. Let them revisit the standards, visit the National Historic Trust guidelines, look at some other communities so that it doesn't impact the homeowner as much as it will by going through the zoning to the planning and back to HPC anyway. If it starts there, it makes it a lot easier.
That makes sense to me. Huh?
When I was on HPC, there was a discussion, and I don't know if this still happens, with regard to a packet that the realtors would get, the local realtors, to give to homeowners. There was a situation where I was before the HPC with a resident who had bought a house who was having some issues with a roof, and it was all resolved in the end. But I also think part of the problem was that homeowner bought their home from an MLM listing, which is not a local real estate agent, so they don't know our guidelines, and I don't know how far you can go. But I think if there's a packet still available, there's always educational opportunities for the local community as well through HPC. So they're all options to look at moving forward with an issue like this.
HBC is looking at that now?
They had looked at it in the past. I don't know if they still have the packet to disseminate. So we're I think going back to them to find out what they have or don't have is probably the way to begin. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public like to speak?
May I stand here?
Stand wherever you want, Bob.
Because I really want to talk not just to you all and the folks in the audience, but I want to talk to the people of Hamilton Township. 2 Saturdays ago, we buried a great friend. A lot of us were there. I had the honor of providing part of the eulogy, and that friend was Rich DeFeo. And it's amazing what he did. He met a guy named Mick, and Mick had a kid that wasn't well off. And there was nothing for Mick's son to do. So he started a baseball league called Buddy Ball. Roger and I were in it from the beginning. And we started with 10 kids, and we got to hundreds of kids. And what Rich DeFeo did for Hamilton Township and beyond was he found something for these kids to do that they couldn't otherwise do. We started with baseball. We grew into bowling. We did other things. And what we learned from this was that it wasn't just doing something terrific for a handicapped child. It brought their families together. It was a family event. Sometimes we would have 300 people there. And I said this at Rich's funeral, and I'll say it again. First time I went to one of these, the St. Joseph football team showed up with their jerseys on. Big strapping teenage kids. And they were buddied up with a handicapped kid. It restored my faith in the youth of America. Rich did that. And then my daughter taught me something. She goes, before I did buddy ball, if I saw a kid in a wheelchair or I saw a kid that was handicapped, I would turn away. I didn't know what to do. And since I've been in buddy ball, I walk up to these kids and say, how you doing? Rich DeFeo, a local guy, for 10 years put his heart and soul into a program not just to help handicapped kids, but to make kids like my kids aware that those people are out there and they are in fact people. Rich did a lot of other things. He was involved in the town. But I lost a good friend, and I think Hamilton Township lost a really terrific citizen. Thank you.
Rich did a lot for veterans, too.
He was instrumental in bringing the moving wall here.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you, Bob. Very nice.
He'll be missed. He'll be missed.
Anyone else in the public like to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Motion for
adjourn.
adjournment.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it.